On North America's #1 South Asian station, NaachRadio.com at 20 minutes to 5. I've got with me Derek Yee, who's actually going to be representing the Alliance for South Asian AIDS Prevention. This is our very first segment of the Winter Warmth Wednesdays. We're going to be talking about taking a look at life from different perspectives. And of course, if anyone can offer us a different perspective, Derek Yee would be it. Derek, how are you doing today?
Frazzled. I just got hijacked from work and I'm here in a radio station for the first time in my life.
How does it feel?
It's funky and interesting.
It is funky and interesting. I like that. That doesn't sound too bad, I'll be honest with you.
Oh, not yet. Not yet.
So, Derek, what I really want to talk about today is sort of living life as a long-term PHA, which is someone living with HIV/AIDS. Let's talk about the first time that you discovered that you were HIV positive. How many years ago was that?
Infected roughly 1988. Tested positive in 1993. It was a formality.
Right.
I had Kaposi sarcoma and I was given roughly 3 months to live.
That's
1993.
And that's 1993. And so we're still talking about a long time ago. And in the early 90s, there was still that stigma attached to HIV that it was a bit of a death sentence. What do you do when you're told that you've got Kaposi sarcoma, which is indicative of full-blown AIDS? You've tested positive for HIV. What is your reaction?
Living la vida loca.
Seriously?
That's what I end up summing it up to about a couple months ago. I had to do a speech. World AIDS Day was coming up and I wanted to summarize my life. Living la vida loca, because when paid professionals tells you time after time that you're going to die, you tend to believe them.
Who was the first person you told that you had HIV?
Who's the first person I didn't tell is more like it. Basically, I tell everybody. I have, like I said, I have Kaposi sarcoma. Clothes goes off, Kaposi spots show up.
But the very first person after you tested positive, was it just an easy acceptance for you that this is what it is?
I had Kaposi's.
Right.
I was in my doctor's office. I needed to get on medication.
Right.
So it was like everyone knew. I just never discussed.
You just never talked about it?
No, even back then, because all my friends were already died of it.
Wow. And how does that feel? Because you're watching your friends pass away of HIV/AIDS, and now you've been told that you have the same virus. Was there never any issue of feeling that this is it? This is it. As the song says,
you expected to die.
Right.
I prepared myself to die for 17 years. My challenge now is living.
Right.
HIV and AIDS is something that I like to look at is in my past.
Right.
There are still trials and tribulations with taking medications properly, but I have to learn how to live.
That is true.
That is my struggle.
And how did you learn to live?
I'm still learning, like I said. 17 years living la vida loca. I'm recently employed, about 2 years now, since 1993. First time working since.
Why did it take you this long to actually get back into the job market? Was it just health reasons or stigma?
Both. Health and stigma. Health-wise, I had renal failure, PCP pneumonia twice, severe mental depression, because people kept telling me I was going to die.
Right.
I had a walker, I weighed 104 pounds, viral load of 500,000, CD4 count of less than 3. What do you expect?
And the minimum to be qualified as not having AIDS is what, 200?
Above 250, I believe, with no opportunistic infections.
And you had a CD count of 3.
Yeah, this is the worst.
So this is it really is. You're told that officially HIV is conquering your body, but clearly not, because you've emerged victorious after 17 years.
It's not by my choice. I believe there's a greater intervention in there somehow. A higher I've been close to death maybe 3-4 times. Right? And the last time when I had kidney failure, I actually had to do not resuscitate on, which brought on family woes and tribulations of, what age was I going to die at, and, family embarrassment, because I was still a young man of 39.
Right. Which is really young.
Yes.
Being South Asian and living with HIV/AIDS, what is that like? From a community perspective, when parents find out, when people find out, how do they react usually?
Basically, not in a very well way. The whole story in a nutshell, which I'll sum it up, was from bad advice. When I was 13, 14 years old, I realized that I was homosexual. A Caucasian counselor from an agency, which I'll go unnamed, but here in the city, told me to go home and tell my parents I was gay, and I was proud. This was 1980, 1981.
Right.
I went home and told my parents I was gay and I was proud. Consequently, I moved out of home shortly thereafter. Lived a rough life on the streets.
Yeah.
But if I could go back, and how we do this, there's certain things you sometimes need to say, but you don't really need to say it as it plans out in life.
Yeah, that is
so
true.
Yes, I do regret going
Would you not
home.
have come out?
Not in the way that I did. I would have gone to university, finished school, and me leaving home at the age of 13, 14, yeah, I did work the streets. I did have substance issues.
Yeah.
But it's what I've made from them. Looking back, I made some choices, and why they led to where I am today at this radio station talking about it all is a reason that I like to say, learning not to be ashamed of who I am.
Right, right. If you had to, well, before I get into that question, I want to know, what did HIV change in your life? Say, for example, we were to sort of do this all over again and HIV wasn't a part of the equation. How would life have been different for you?
How would life have been different?
Because you had already moved out, right?
At the age of 1993, I moved into Casey House Hospice.
Okay.
I spent most of my life inside of a hospice. If I wasn't in a hospice, I was homeless. This was caused by me being, one, homosexual, not living at home, lack of cultural understanding among gays,
right,
and the HIV situation, and the fact that I was ill constantly.
True.
So I never had a chance to live life. That's why I've said I'm now learning how to live. When I say living La Vida Loca for 17 years, it meant I was in Casey House Hospice,
right,
waiting to die for 17 years. When I was in Casey House, I was homeless. Mm-hmm. I was using drugs. I was not being who I am today.
In terms of, because we've got a lot of South Asian people listening in right now, if there was one thing you would want the mainstream South Asian audience to know about people living with HIV/AIDS, if there was one perception you could change, what would it be?
That we don't care when we run away from home, or when we don't talk, or when we don't call home. A lot of times,
and that's the incorrect perception. Is that what you're trying to say?
It's incorrect.
Right.
Because we do not call, or anyone does not call home. This is a life lesson learned, not necessarily with HIV, but it learns about people and psychology as growing up. I call it experiential knowledge or experiential learning. Because somebody does not call home does not mean they don't want to call home, does not mean they don't care, does not mean they don't love.
Why don't they call home?
They're afraid.
What are you afraid of?
Facing the family, talking the truth.
What would the worst thing be if you were to talk to the family? Like, what exactly are you afraid of in talking to the family? Because family, what we were always told is family will accept you always.
Family will learn to accept you. I did a wonderful speech at ASAAP. I left home, like I said, at a very young age of 14, 15 years old. And it took a while before I went back home to see my family. It wasn't their doing, it was my own doing. And my father was very ill, and my lovely niece Jessica showed up at my door one day and said, "Uncle, you're coming home."
That's amazing.
And when I went home, my dad wasn't the big burly man that I remembered. He'd had a stroke, he'd had a heart attack. And me being gay or being HIV positive wasn't the topic. It wasn't what we should be talking about.
There were bigger issues.
There were bigger issues, yeah.
That's amazing. And what was their reaction to see you?
Love. I thought I'd get a backhand. Seriously, I thought I'd get a backhand for doing something wrong. Love. My family unconditionally loves me. I just, as a young man, have learned that I shouldn't be pushing my sexuality in their face.
Right.
It's by my choice. I'm still respected and loved. My niece and nephew, they're born here in Canada. Mm-hmm. They know and they love their uncle.
Right.
But my family themselves, I need to be a little bit more respectful of cultural.
True.
Values.
Sometimes it's just, I think sometimes when we're raised in certain cultural environments, it's just hard to accept it.
No, when you want to rebel,
yeah,
the best thing to do is rebel against cultural values. I am not South Asian, I'm Canadian, I'm not this, I'm not that. You diss religion, right?
Yep.
Because you're different, you're here, you're Canadian. But sometimes, looking back at the age of 44, there were some cultural values that I needed to actually uphold.
Right.
And one was being the son.
We've talked a lot about sort of looking back in retrospect, but I'm going to ask this question one more time because I love looking back and learning from life. If you had to go back and do it all again, what would you change? Other than, of course, coming out at an early age.
I'm going to answer that question in a different way.
Go for it.
Because in Extra Magazine, disclosure issues came out.
Yeah.
As a young South Asian male, they needed to put a face to HIV and AIDS and disclosure. Mm-hmm. I once said, if I had a time machine or a little TARDIS, like Doctor Who, and I can go back in time and have a conversation with the man who infected me, I would forgive him, remembering that he was a victim of someone else as well. And it was time to stop pointing fingers. If I could go back in time and change my life, I don't know what I'd change, because so many things would be different.
Right.
These days, I find myself advocating, as I did in the 80s, 13, 14 years old, walking up and down the street, sleeping in the bathhouse. Little has changed in society. People are still persecuted for who they are and what they believe in.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Let's talk about ASAAP really quickly. In terms of the agency, how did you get in touch with the Alliance for South Asian AIDS Prevention?
I needed to find culture. I needed to find a home. I needed to find a mother. Or a warm place where I can go and enjoy some good company and some food. And it was through the client support, basically, that I fell in love with the agency.
Right.
We'd meet monthly. There were some other PHAs, people who have HIV and AIDS, and it was like a family. It was having brothers and sisters, a comfortable environment. The support worker back then used to walk by and tap me upside the head, just like my mother used to, and said, "Derek, shut up and eat your food." And I used to go by and eat there for the food, for the love, for the warmth. It was like going home when I didn't have a home.
That's amazing. And I think that is a really important service, isn't it?
It's a very important service. Like I said, I used to go to Casey House, and they taught me how to die and make wills and move on from that. ASAP taught me, or started the process of teaching Derek on how to live. So he started teaching me a word called capacity building.
Yeah.
And learning not how to think again. I had forgotten how to think. Not that I had used my brain a lot, but they started the process of teaching me how to speak up for myself, become an individual.
That's amazing.
They gave me the courage to go back home and see my parents.
So instead of sort of, making it all about let's start preparing to make your wills and start saying your goodbyes, I think they taught you how to start living again?
Yeah, they helped start the process of teaching me how to live again.
That's awesome.
By laughing at first. Laughter therapy. There's a client at ASAP.
Yeah.
Who one time we go on a retreat every summer. This is very important for PHAs, people like myself, who are stuck in the city on disability. They go away once a year on a retreat. And she was giving me a yoga sort of toe massage things. And she was practicing laughing yoga. And I started going, ha, 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 ha. Finally, she touched a bone in one of my toes, and I started laughing uncontrollably. For the first time in my life, since the age of 12, I actually laughed.
What kind of difference does that make, to be able to laugh like a 12-year-old again?
It made me feel young, made me feel happy, and I put this smile on my face, and every time I think about this, I know what true laughter really is. And
amazing.
To me, it helps you with shame, with stigma, with guilt, with acceptance, with so much.
Derek, your story has been so inspiring and motivating. I want to know just one more thing. What are you looking forward to next in your life? Because you've had so many chapters to your life. What are you looking forward to next?
Oh, there's so many options, because in exploring who I am, I've realized I like painting, I like art, I write, poetry.
Are you working on anything right now?
Yes, I am, actually.
Painting or writing?
Both. One's called Evidence of Thee. I say boo. Give rise and sign you the shadows of the voices to be challenged by me. Is how it starts off.
That's beautiful, actually. I want you to come back and actually read it out when you're actually done with it, if you're okay with it.
Oh yeah, true enough.
Derek, thank you so much for coming on board. I think that, you know what, it's so easy to kind of look at your story and go, my God, my story has so many challenges. And then you look at someone who's actually sort of braved so many more challenges and has emerged victorious. And you go, man, I have so much more to achieve. And I think that hearing your story makes me feel that. So thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me. This has been a real live experience.
Real live is a good way of defining it. And of course, when we come back after the next song, I'm going to talk about how you guys listening at home or at work or at school, wherever you guys are, can make a difference to ASAP, the Alliance for South Asian AIDS Prevention. They do accept donations, but they also accept volunteers. And volunteers are important, right, Derek?
They're very important. They help the agency run.
Exactly, because for a not-for-profit, I think we can't really always have enough staff to do all the work we do.
And we're not going to mention funding cuts or anything like that by the City of Toronto during this show.
Let's not get... Yeah, we talk about it all the time. It's a sad little state of affairs. What can we say? Our Toronto government is an interesting little institution in its own self. But funding cuts and, sort of challenges aside for not-for-profits, volunteers are what keep it all running. So if you'd like to volunteer, if you'd like to donate, we'll have all those details coming up in just a bit. Before we do, Derek, do you want to give a quick shout-out to anyone that's listening in right now?
No, just... If you're listening, next time, get another friend. And both of you sit down and listen. And encourage, and so on, and so on. Until it becomes like radio time, talk time, when there is no television. You're sitting down, listening to the words, and you close your eyes, and you use your imagination, and you draw your own picture.
That is beautiful. I love that sentiment, actually, Derek. Thank you so much. I've been inspired, I've been motivated, and I'm really, really grateful. Thank you, Derek.